Ukraine obliterates entire Pantsir Convoy in seconds after it. Azovka Bridge collapses like an earthquake.
Azovka Bridge was supposed to be a quiet, secure inland route, but Russia turned it into the perfect kill zone. By sending a fully loaded Pantsir S-1 convoy across that narrow span, Moscow created a target too valuable for Ukraine to ignore. One precise strike obliterated the entire column, triggered a massive chain reaction, and brought the bridge crashing down, crippling a key operational plan in seconds. This wasn't just a tactical hit, it was a shockwave that reshaped the battlefield. If you find this breakdown valuable, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more frontline updates. At 4:10 a.m., the first decision that would shake the entire southern front was already sealed. For weeks, Ukraine had proposed a simple, civilian-focused agreement: allow the controlled movement of humanitarian cargo across Azovka Bridge, a vital inland artery stretching 1.6 miles across a narrow valley. A corridor of peace, a pressure valve, a chance to prevent escalation. But the Kremlin slammed the door shut, not quietly, categorically. Putin personally rejected the accord and, within hours, issued a counter-order that stunned even some of his own commanders. Deploy a 22-vehicle Pantsir S-1 column across Azovka Bridge, not for defense, but to spearhead preparations for a new strike toward Kherson. A deliberate escalation disguised as routine movement. By 4:32 a.m., the convoy rolled out. 6 Pantsir S-1 launchers, 4 radar control vehicles, 2 mobile command trucks, and 10 ammunition carriers loaded with an estimated 14,000 rounds of 57 E-6 missiles. The combined payload, if detonated simultaneously, carried the explosive force equivalent to 18 tons of TNT, enough to turn the entire bridge into a furnace. The bridge trembled slightly under the weight, but the Russian crews felt untouchable. They believed Azovka Bridge sat deep enough inside controlled territory to be immune to surprise attacks. No sea, no coastline, no obvious approach vectors, just winding valleys and layered terrain. They didn't realize that this isolation was not protection, it was a trap. As the convoy crawled toward the midpoint of the bridge, dawn still hidden behind the mountains, Ukraine's surveillance teams confirmed the final piece of the puzzle. The entire Russian air defense spearhead was now fully exposed on a single steel span. A perfect target. A single decision away from disaster, and Kyiv had already made that decision. By 4:47 a.m., Ukraine had no reason to hold back. Russia had pushed a 22-vehicle Pantsir S-1 convoy onto Azovka Bridge. 6 launchers, 4 radar trucks, and ammunition carriers holding over 14,000 high-explosive missiles. Enough firepower to flatten a city block in under a minute. And all of it was heading toward Kherson. Ukraine's answer was immediate. 2 F-16 Block 50s left their forward base flying through the valley at low altitude to stay invisible to Russian radar. The enemy convoy still had every radar switched to transit mode. No scanning, no tracking, no awareness. They were moving blind. At 4:55 a.m., the lead F-16 climbed just enough to get a visual. The entire convoy was stretched across the bridge, bumper to bumper, perfectly aligned, perfectly exposed. A kill zone built by Russia itself. Target boxes turned solid. Authorization flashed green. 2 GBU-39 glide bombs separated from the wings and dove toward the bridge with precision measured in inches. The first bomb hit the radar vehicle. The detonation was immediate, an eruption of fire and metal. Radar panels, antenna masts, and armor plates were blown off the bridge like shrapnel in a hurricane. The second bomb hit the ammunition carrier. That changed everything. For a split second, there was silence. Then the cargo detonated. A chain reaction shot down the line of vehicles like a spark through dry grass. Missile canisters ruptured. Fuel tanks ignited. High explosive warheads cooked off in rapid succession. The temperature spiked above 2,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to warp steel in seconds. The blast column rose over 200 feet into the air. The shockwave shattered windows in a village nearly 2 kilometers away. Within 10 seconds, the entire Pantsir convoy, all 22 vehicles, was nothing but a burning skeleton scattered across Azovka Bridge. The strike was complete.
If you were standing in Ukraine's command room at that moment, would you call this justice or simply survival?
The moment the Pantsir Convoy detonated, the battle shifted from a precision strike to a structural nightmare. At 4:56 a.m., the fireball rising from Azovka Bridge wasn't just destroying vehicles, it was reshaping the bridge itself. The explosion generated an estimated 11.2 tons of TNT equivalent pressure, a force normally seen in industrial disasters, not on a military crossing. Flames roared across the span, swallowing guardrails and melting asphalt. Steel beams, each designed to carry over 120 tons of load, began groaning under thermal shock. The blast had instantly heated the roadway surface to nearly 1,900 degrees Celsius, hot enough to soften structural steel like taffy. But the real damage wasn't above the surface. It was inside the heart of the bridge. Azovka Bridge's weakest point, span 145, sat directly under the center of the convoy. Engineers had long known it was the most vulnerable segment due to an aging support bearing and accumulated microfractures. Now, under the combined weight of the vehicles and the sudden thermal spike, those fractures behaved like detonators. First came a deep metallic crack, sharp, unmistakable. Then the sound no bridge ever wants to make, a cascading buckle. The primary support beam warped downward by nearly 40 centimeters in under 3 seconds. The explosion had removed the counter-stress forces, and gravity finished the job. The roadway sagged, then tore open like a sheet of paper under strain. At 4:57 a.m., Azovka Bridge began to collapse. A section the length of a football field dropped in stages, first tilting, then ripping free from its bolts, then slamming into the valley floor with a blast of dust and shattered concrete. The plume rose higher than the bridge itself had ever stood. Vehicles still burning on the deck tumbled down with it, exploding again on impact. The collapse triggered a secondary chain reaction. Ruptured fuel tanks, detonating warheads, and the violent ignition of whatever remained in the Pantsir missile racks. Each detonation echoed across the valley like artillery fire. For several minutes, it sounded like a rolling bombardment. When the smoke thinned, Azovka Bridge was no longer a structure. It was a mangled skeleton of steel and blackened concrete. A route that once carried thousands of tons of supplies a week had been erased in less than 120 seconds. And as the dust settled, one fact became unavoidable. Russia hadn't just lost a convoy, they had lost a strategic artery. If this is what a single strike could do to their logistics, imagine what comes next. By 5:02 a.m., the collapse of Azovka Bridge had reached Russian command posts like a shockwave. Initial reports were fragmented: thermal spikes, radar loss, comms blackout. But within minutes, the horrifying truth became clear. The entire Pantsir S-1 strike column, valued at more than $230 million, was gone. No survivors, no vehicles intact, not even salvageable wreckage. Russian rapid response units scrambled, but they were already too late. The valley was a furnace. Temperatures near the bridge crater still measured over 600 degrees Celsius, enough to ignite uniforms, melt wiring, and detonate unexploded ordnance. Rescue teams struggled to approach. Drones sent ahead were destroyed by residual missile cook-offs, their cameras capturing explosions every 12 to 18 seconds. It looked less like a convoy ambush and more like a volcanic eruption. Commanders argued over the cause. Some claimed a sabotage blast. Others insisted Ukraine deployed a new long-range weapon. But the satellite imagery was undeniable. 2 precise impact signatures on the bridge deck. Classic F-16 glide bomb strikes. Meanwhile, confusion spread across Russian channels. Their southern air defense grid had just lost 11% of its mobile interceptors in a single incident. Divisions expecting Pantsir support were suddenly exposed. Units preparing for the Kherson offensive were ordered to halt immediately. By 5:20 a.m., the Kremlin initiated emergency protocols, grounding aircraft within a 150-kilometer radius. Panic and disbelief collided inside command centers. Nothing in recent months had hit this hard, this fast, or this cleanly. The question wasn't how Ukraine attacked, it was how Russia ever allowed so much firepower to gather on one vulnerable bridge. And the worst was still unfolding. As chaos erupted beneath the collapsing bridge, Ukraine's pilots executed the second half of their mission: withdraw undetected. At 5:06 a.m., both F-16s banked hard west, dropping back into valley cover. Their engines stayed at military power only, no afterburner, keeping their heat signatures low. They weren't just escaping, they were erasing their presence. Russian radar, still blinded by the destroyed Pantsir systems, attempted to reboot tracking, but the strike had crippled the local network. Of the 6 radar trucks on the bridge, 3 were incinerated, 2 torn in half, and 1 blown clear off the span entirely. Its remains found 412 meters from the fall point. With the grid offline, Russian operators saw only static for nearly 8 minutes. Those 8 minutes were all Ukraine needed. Signals intelligence teams redirected Russian attention with decoy transmissions, fake aircraft pings, ghost signatures, scrambled coordinates. By the time Russia regained a partial picture of the airspace, the F-16s were already beyond detection range, flying through low cloud layers toward their recovery base. Inside Ukraine's command post, tension lingered until the final call. Eagle 1, wheels down. Seconds later, Eagle 2, wheels down. Mission complete. No losses, no pursuit, no electronic trail. The entire operation had lasted 29 minutes, from the F-16's launch to touchdown. A surgical strike with mathematical precision. Ukrainian analysts reviewing the footage confirmed near-perfect targeting. Both GBU-39s impacted within less than 75 centimeters of their programmed aim points. While Russia searched for an explanation, Ukraine already had one. Preparation, discipline, and timing. And the final blow was yet to be fully measured. By sunrise, the full scale of the disaster hit Russia's command. Azovka Bridge, once carrying 3,000 tons of supplies per day, was now split in two, its central span lying twisted at the valley floor. Engineers estimated repairs would require at least 4 to 6 months, if not total reconstruction. The damage figure exceeded $420 million, not counting the destroyed vehicles. But the strategic consequences were even worse. Without the Pantsir Convoy, Russian artillery groups along the southern axis lost their mobile air defense umbrella. Units previously protected by the Pantsir shield were suddenly exposed to drone strikes. Within hours, Ukraine capitalized, launching targeted FP5 attacks that destroyed 9 additional logistics trucks and 2 command shelters. The ripple effect was immediate and brutal. Supply routes were forced to reroute 85 kilometers east, adding delays of up to 14 hours for fuel and ammunition. Some battalions reported receiving only 40% of their usual daily resupply. Morale plummeted. Commanders argued. Soldiers posted videos whispering that the bridge was supposed to be untouchable. Meanwhile, international monitoring stations detected the blast from Azovka Bridge at a radius of 92 kilometers, marking it as one of the largest non-nuclear detonations of the year. The collapse shocked analysts worldwide, not because Ukraine struck, but because Russia allowed such a massive concentration of equipment in a vulnerable corridor. By midday, one conclusion dominated military briefings. The loss of Azovka Bridge didn't just cut a supply line, it shattered an entire operational plan. And for Ukraine, this was more than a tactical victory. It was proof that precision, timing, and intelligence could dismantle a much larger force in under half an hour. The question now hanging over the Kremlin was simple. How many more Azovkas can they afford to lose? And as analysts replayed the footage frame by frame, one fear kept surfacing. If a single strike could unravel this much, what happens when Ukraine targets deeper, more critical infrastructure? For the first time, Moscow was forced to confront the fragility of its own war machine. The strike on Azovka Bridge wasn't just another battlefield incident. It was a moment that exposed the real balance of power: precision over quantity, planning over bravado, discipline over noise. In less than half an hour, Ukraine erased a convoy worth hundreds of millions, collapsed a critical supply artery, and crippled an entire operational plan. Russia didn't just lose vehicles. They lost time, momentum, and the illusion that their rear lines were secure. And now the question hangs over every command room from Kherson to Moscow. If one bridge can fall this quickly, what happens when the next one is targeted? But that's my view. Now I want yours. Do you think this strike marks a turning point on the southern front? Or is Russia capable of recovering faster than expected? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.